quarterback to do it.
Mm-hmm. Now, before we get down to our Auburn fall camp preview, Shane, let's hit on one of the most fun topics here in the off season that it really got kicked off a year ago, Shane, when Texas and Oklahoma jumped to the SEC. Now the Big Ten has finally answered with the expansion of their own, of course, Southern Cal and UCLA. It's official already, 2024. They will be joining the Big Ten. And, man, so many, we had your little clip. I thought that was hilarious on the last episode. But, I mean, this is kind of ridiculous, isn't it, that we've got two Southern California teams now playing in a Northern League. And how about this, Shane? I've heard this, that UCLA and Cal, UCLA and USC, they are as close to Hawaii as they are to their next closest Big Ten opponent now, and that is Nebraska. So, this is a nightmare for if you want to keep things close together. You know what I mean?
It is. But that's what we're turning into, Mike. And we're growing. We've been talking about this for many, many years. That we knew the expansion was going to happen. We knew that there were going to be these super divisions of college football. I didn't quite expect USC and UCLA to be the ones, coming out east, but they did. I mean, geography is not my strong suit, Mike, but the fact of the matter is, we've got Texas now. We got Mizzou in the Southeastern Conference. Mm-hmm. As much as I like to give these boys shit in California, it's an arms race. It's like the Wild Wild West. Get what you can, put a flag in it, and claim your territory.
Right.
That's what's happening now between these two conferences. And I think it's a big get for them. I know that sounds crazy, but there's a market for those California teams. But I don't think it's going to be near like the SEC. But I don't know. It's interesting that they're not settled in, that they keep growing. So that makes me think that the SEC may be working on something here, and the fact that they're making it 2024. They're moving the timeline up. So do they know something we don't?
Well, I like to joke, Shane, I can't wait for Oregon and Washington to join the SEC. I mean, they're just to hell with all this geography. But, Oregon and Washington, two of the most, I would imagine, coveted programs out there. So let's play this little game here, Shane. If the SEC does have its eyes set on expansion, I think they're going to add 4 more teams. I really do. Because it's, the SEC is such a juggernaut that, you have to be playing chess while everybody's playing checkers, so to speak. Mm-hmm. They did that last year when they brought in Texas and Oklahoma. And here's the biggest thing that I'm looking at, Shane, because everybody's circling Notre Dame to the Big Ten and maybe Cal and Stanford and all these academic programs. Right. I think the Big Ten, if they really want to get savvy and smart, Shane, what they've got to do is the Southern schools break in to the Southern footprint to get where the SEC is just completely dominant. So you may be sitting here saying, well, why in the hell would the SEC add a Clemson or a Florida State? We already got those markets covered. But what you don't want is a Big Ten to gobble them up, and then all of a sudden – the SEC country is now Big Ten country too. So, I think the SEC's really got to be proactive here and try to get some of these, these elite brands to join the SEC. What are your thoughts on that?
Mike, you hit the nail on the head. We have to be extremely careful now. Our next move shouldn't be emotional. Mm-hmm. They should be psychological here, because one of the things that you notice with USC and with UCLA, forget the programs. Look at the location. These guys and kids that are growing up in Los Angeles, these kids that are growing up in San Diego, they're going to be watching Big Ten football from here on out. So there is going to be a natural drive or an underlying respect for the conference that's in their own state. a lot of people look at the SEC and they talk about our dominance. Well, we're dominant because of where we're recruiting, man. We're recruiting in Florida. We're recruiting in Texas and Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia. That's where a lot of our talent is coming from. That's why we're more talented than the Big Ten. But if the Big Ten decides to expand and plant their flag in Florida or plant their flag in South Carolina, they start taking some of our eyes off the SEC and start looking at the Big Ten again. So I think you're right, man. You got to be really careful because as they continue to grow, not only should we grow, but we should also stop them from expanding into our territory. And I know that sounds crazy but it's a pipeline, brother. You take such those old NCAA games, man. You want to turn that state blue so that you can start recruiting there. But that's exactly what Big Ten is going to be able to do now. And there's a lot of freaking talent coming from California. Hell, look at Tennessee, prize quarterback, California. How many other talents coming from California? And if the Big Ten can add a little bit of luster to their program by putting a couple programs in there, then you got to be careful. You got to take notice.
Right. Yeah, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, Bryce Young from California. Matt Corral just led Ole Miss to the Sugar Bowl from California.
Right.
Many, many others, leaving that state. Maybe they stay now that Southern Cal and UCLA is in a better league. But so let me ask you, the one everybody – hey, you love to hate this program, but they are the biggest name out there that is not associated with any conference. Notre Dame, Shane. Would you be in favor of the SEC? Like I said, everybody thinks Notre Dame's jumping to the Big Ten. I mean, how bold of a move would it for the SEC to steal the Fighting Irish right out from under the Big Ten? Would you be in favor of Notre Dame, or would you more want to see that the SEC really want to stay in the region?
No, and here's why. The more that we talk about this California, the more I'm thinking, why don't we have a presence up north? Because really, geography doesn't matter anymore. Money doesn't matter. We can send these teams whatever. It does suck for the fans because a common fan having to drive to L.A. to watch a football game. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? From Ann Arbor, Michigan. That ain't cheap, brother. You can't Uber that one. So that's the thing that I hate about it is it's just they're not taking. But more and more people are watching on TV, and that's what's driving this thing is Disney anyway. So I think. I like the North idea just so that we can kind of plant our flag up there and take some eyes off of the Big Ten. But, God, I just hate Notre Dame. You know what I'm saying? Especially this year. They knocked my boys out of the so, I don't know. Mike. That's a tough question. Do you have four teams in mind? Are we going to go through this?
Yeah. So let's talk about our top four here, Shane. And, one that I think, the Gamecocks won't be happy to hear it. But again, you have to think about the future of the SEC. You've got to keep this program away from the Big Ten. I think the number one team on the docket you've got to land is the Clemson Tigers. What about you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Number one, Clemson, without a doubt. It's a national brand. A lot of people love Clemson, so I think bringing them into the fold only helps the SEC instead of hurting.
Now, how about this one, Shane? A little bit, obviously a big name, but not a elite football program. But I think it could be in the SEC, and it expands the conference's footprint into a new state. Number two on my board, Shane, I'd go after the North Carolina Tar Heels. How about you?
I like the Tar Heels, especially because of a multi-sport situation. I mean, it would be awesome to see Kentucky and North Carolina playing basketball every year, which, typically they find their way on that path anyway. But I think that would be good. But I don't know if that's the ACC team that I would want to bring over. I get the concept bringing North Carolina, but I think the Carolinas would be covered with South Carolina and Clemson. I'm thinking like a Virginia Tech. Here's a program that has a ton of fan support. It's an electric stadium atmosphere. It fit right in with the SEC. I got to see it firsthand in Bristol when we went up there and Tennessee played at the Bristol Motor Speedway. It was freaking awesome. Fans were great. We got to talk to a lot of them. We got to make fun of them, a lot of them, when we were going back to our little camper. But I tell you what, it was an electric atmosphere, and that's a new state. There's a lot of talent coming out of Virginia. So I don't know. I'm leaning a little more. If I'm going to take someone else from the ACC, give me Virginia Tech.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw this, Shane, but I put this out on Twitter because someone was, they're very confused about why North Carolina would even consider something like this with, how great. Every time you hear North Carolina, you go straight to their basketball program.
Right.
It's arguably the top basketball program in the country, Shane, but their football team makes more than twice what their basketball program makes, and they don't even have a good football program. So, I mean, you just cannot look at any of this through a basketball lens. I mean, it would be great to add a brand like that, but if that was very valuable, Kansas would, they would have a home right now in a much better league. But it just is basically a non-factor when you're talking about all this realignment.
I'll tell you what, if Mac Brown wasn't 95 years old and had a computer and heard you say that on his podcast, he'd come over and whoop your ass, Mike.
Now, how about what other shade? This one's got to be in my top 4. I don't know about you, but I'm putting Florida State with, their rich tradition, and they have, I know they've been struggling the last couple of years, but they have a fan base that supports that program when they're good, which, hell, our entire childhoods, they were, one of the top teams in the country, and the fans sell that thing out. I think you got to go after Florida State as well.
Well, I'm going to the state of Florida, Mike, but I don't want the Seminoles anymore. I think I would in the 90s, in the 2000s, but we're in the new chapter of college football, and this NIL, the thing I love about it is the fact that Miami loves to spend money. And I do think there should be another team in Florida. I think it'd just be better for the SEC. So at this moment, I know it sounds crazy, and I know it doesn't got a ton of fan support down there, but damn, I'm telling you, when they were hitting, brother, when Miami was on top, that stadium was packed 24/7. So, and I think they're on their way up, especially with this money. So give me Miami. I think if we're talking next 20, 30 years, who's a better football program, I'm thinking it's the Hurricanes. I don't think it's the Seminoles. I think their day's done.
Wow. I can't believe you said that, Shane.
I know.
After I bashed Miami relentlessly the last couple of weeks.
I know, but think about it. We've been talking about all these marquee games every year. Now, obviously, it's not been good for the Hurricanes, but we've built it up every single year, and it's never disappointed. It was always a fun and entertaining game. People want Miami to be good again. And the fact that, you got to remember why they were good to begin with, because of boosters and the shenanigans going on down there. Now you kind of gave them a little bit of an outlet, and you're seeing these recruits already starting to flock down there. It's just a matter of time before they're good again. So let's capitalize on it, and let's watch some good football along the way.
Now, for my 4th, Shane, I'm right there with you with Virginia Tech. I would ask them to come to the SEC. I think they're a perfect fit for what the SEC is and those fans. But since you already mentioned them, I don't want to double up and make this a little bit more interesting. Yep. Many different ways we could go, Shane. Again, I kind of joke about it, but Oregon would be a hell of an addition.
Right.
Of course, they don't really fit into the SEC, so I would understand not inviting them. I think another great fan base, their program's not been as good, but I think it's because of the league they're in. I think West Virginia makes a lot of sense. I would welcome them to the SEC, so that's a candidate. How about Oklahoma State, Shane? They've been pretty solid. Yeah. They've actually been better than Texas the last couple of years in the Big 12. You got Baylor out there. You got NC State. You got Virginia. Any of these teams I'm throwing out at you, any of them more attractive than the rest in your mind?
Well, A couple of them. I do like the West approach. I think we got enough on the East. I'm ruling out teams like West Virginia. Nothing against them, but that cathedral will never be filled like an SEC one would. I just don't think they have the buzz. I don't think they have the market. I may be wrong. It's not like I'm really good at research anyway. I'm sure somebody will hit me with a stat saying, "Did you realize they made $1.8 trillion off that oil field or something?" I don't know. But here's the thing, Mike. I think you started off the show with the perfect team, and that's Notre Dame. Here's a team that not only has the national support, it has money. It has a stadium that people want to visit and see Touchdown Jesus. Mm-hmm. It's just there's so much going on. They would fit so well in that SEC pregame, tailgate experience. So if I'm leaning anywhere, it's up north, and it's the Fighting Irish.
Always knew you were a Golden Domer in your heart.
Ever since Rudy, it's like I kept waiting for my shot. I tried to get on the lawn care service here at Tennessee just so I'd get one opportunity to play, but no. I think just marketing. Now, it would make sense for another Texas program. You mentioned Baylor, Houston, maybe. I don't know if you want to consider Baylor. I think Baylor would probably be your best route out there. Oklahoma State, this is a program that finds its way in the top 25 a lot, not just in football, but in other sports. They put a lot of talent in the NFL. It's another team out west, so it makes sense to me. But I'm leaning pretty hard on Notre Dame if we're doing anything. Now, if we're getting crazy and getting extreme, yeah, sure, let's head out west. Let's get a couple of those teams. It sucks that USC has already signed the dotted line in UCLA, because if I were picking two California teams, those are the two I'd want,
Right.
But, it's the next chapter, brother. Do you think we hear something about this expansion? Big Ten can't be the only one making headlines, not with media days right around the corner.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, here's the one thing I left off. I did touch on it on the last show, Shane. The ACC's got something that's called Grant of Right deal. And they're basically, what that means is they're signed on with the ACC until 2036. And if they leave, their punishment is every TV dollar they make until 2036 goes to the ACC. So, they're kind of like locked in there. But now I've heard rumor and speculation that these ACC schools are, they got their lawyers involved, and they're trying to see if they can get out of this deal, because I think it says something like, that deal is only worth anything if the ACC, as long as it's still a power conference. So I think they could maybe argue that the SEC and the Big Ten are the only power conferences left. So, I think it all hinges on that, to be honest with you, because no one is going to leave if they get no TV dollars for decades on end. Yeah. You know what I mean?
So how do you think this plays out, man? So when it's all said and done, Big Ten will have, 18?
I think right now they're at 16, just like the SEC.
Yeah, but
I think they're each going to add at least 4 more.
Okay.
To get to 20.
That's crazy to me. So SEC with 20, Big 10 with 20, or Big 20, whatever they want to call it now. And then do you think there's a reshuffle of these other programs? I still think there's going to be 3 conferences when it's all said and done.
Well, it sounds like the Big 12 is trying to gobble up some of the Pac-12 that's out there. So I think that's kind of realistically what will happen. The Big 12 will gobble up teams like Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado. And then the Big 10, we'll see where they go. But Oregon, Washington, Stanford.
Do you see ACC expanding?
No, I think they're going to die. Mm-hmm. Because I think the SEC is going to find a way to gobble them up. At least they're better programs,
Right. Yeah. It's going to be interesting, man. 20 years from now, we're going to be looking back and remembering the good old days.
Exactly.
Oh, shit. Driving to Oregon to watch Auburn play.
For the West Division Championship.
The West Divisional Championship. Oh, my gosh. Man, you better go see the SEC stadiums now, Mike, because it's about to get ridiculous.
But, hey,